is die mooiste mooi vir my. Tot in jou vlaktes waar ek al my drome kry. Tot in jou berge, jou riviere, waterstrome, bekoor jy my. Ek kan vir altyd net hier na jou skoonheid staan. Want waar het ek ooit so iets gewaar? Jy's beautiful verby vir my. Dis hier by jou waar ek wil bly. Suid-Afrika, jy's my mooiste land. Suid-Afrika, ja dis jy wat my dra. Maar wat het geword van ons reënboognasie? Wat hande so vat en saam so staan. Suid-Afrika, ja ons sien in die trane. Suid-Afrika, wat rol jou wange? Wanneer sal ons leer dat ons mense, ons maak jou sien? Daar is so baie wat ek jou wil vra. Gaan ons betaal vir letsels wat jy dra? Ek weet die plan was nooit dat ons so moet beklei my land, maar sê vir my. Ek weet jy's baie lang van die hoes verby. Jou kop al zwaar my land, maar sê toch nie vir my. Wat kan van jou word my land? Suid-Afrika, jy's my mooiste land. Suid-Afrika, ja dis jy wat my dra. Maar wat het geword van ons reënboognasie? Wat hande so vat en saam so staan. Suid-Afrika, ja ons sien in die trane. Suid-Afrika, wat rol oor jou wange? Wanneer sal ons leer dat ons mense, ons maak jou sien? Dit is tyd dat ons moet hande vat en op ons knieën neerval en vrouwe God, kom red ons land. Suid-Afrika, jy's my mooiste land. Suid-Afrika, ja dis jy wat my dra. Maar wat het geword van ons reënboognasie? Wat hande so vat en saam so staan. Suid-Afrika, ja ons sien in die trane. Suid-Afrika, wat rol oor jou wange? Wanneer sal ons leer dat ons mense, ons maak jou sien? Wanneer sal ons leer dat ons mense, ons maak jou sien? Suid-Afrika.
I can imagine.
The following message is brought to you by the Harris for President campaign. This is not a paid political endorsement, merely humor for your enjoyment. And now, from Kamala Harris, the following unpaid endorsement.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know?
What can be unburdened by what has been. 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 What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
Now that we're unburdened by what has been, it's time for a message from Joe Biden.
After, going to my mind's going blank now. What's happening? What I can't remember. I'm gonna lose track. My mind's going blank now. What are you talking about? What the hell's going on here? Where the hell are we? My mind's going blank now. I can't remember. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. What am I doing here? My mind's going blank now. Where am I headed? I keep forgetting I'm president. Where am I? No idea. Last night I was on a television. I was on a telephone. Rapidly rising in with America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him in the we're going to seize the ill-begotten gains of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah. NATO's purpose is to defend against aggression. Let me make near and dear to you that you like to be able to. Anyway, my mind's going blank now. What's happening? What I can't remember. I'm gonna lose track. My mind's going blank now. What are you talking about? What the hell's going on here? Where the hell are you? My mind's going blank now. I can't remember. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. What am I doing here? My mind's going blank now. Where am I headed? I keep forgetting I'm president. Where am I? No idea. I don't think as the idea that the political coverage of I want to thank and recognize Dr. John Kingersong. Good song. I can't get this to function at all. My mind's going blank now. What's happening? What I can't remember. I'm gonna lose track. My mind's going blank now. What are you talking about? What the hell's going on here? Where the hell are you? My mind's going blank now. I can't remember. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. What am I doing here? My mind's going blank now. Where am I headed? I keep forgetting I'm president. Where am I? No idea. No idea. No idea. No idea.
Oh, it's over. I want it to be very clear to this audience today. You must know that Kamala Harris was never the border czar. She was never appointed by the Romanov family to monitor our border. That's a lie spread by Republican racists and misogynists and evil conservatives. Kamala Harris was never the border czar. Never the border czar. It never happened, folks. It never happened. Don't believe the lies. Don't believe the lies. It never happened. It never happened.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
No. Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar.
She's appointed the border czar. I thought it said she wasn't.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped
I'm so confused.
Kamala Harris to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar.
She
That's
wasn't.
what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Her role as border czar?
Folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted
It's
her
so
to work on
confusing.
the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar.
She wasn't the border czar.
Which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
I'm so confused. I thought she wasn't the border czar. But MSNBC, ABC News, CNN just told me she was the border czar. Oh, my mind's going blank now. What was she, the border czar or not the border czar? Oh, for simpler times, ladies and gentlemen, for simpler times. And that's what's going on today. This is what's happening all around as Kamala Harris apparently is not the border czar. Wow. Let me read this message from NBC News. Ladies and gentlemen, we go now live to Andrea Kramer with NBC News. Tonight, President Joe Biden announced that he has appointed Vice President Kamala Harris to lead efforts to stem migration across the U.S.-Mexico border as the administration faces growing political pressure to address a surge in undocumented migrant children unaccompanied by parents. Biden said during an immigration meeting at the White House that he had asked Harris to lead the administration's efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, countries that will need help stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border. A senior administration official said Harris' role would focus on two tracks. both curbing the current flow of migrants and implementing a long-term strategy that addresses the root causes of migration. Cabinet members, including the Secretary of State, are expected to work closely with Harris on these issues. Biden, who as vice president was tasked by then President Barack Obama with coordinating on similar efforts in Central America, said he learned during that time, if you deal with the problems in the country, it benefits everyone. There were a number of issues the United States could help the region address, ranging from violence to natural disasters, that he said were ignored by the previous administration under Donald John Trump. This is Angria Mitchell reporting live for NBC News. Oh my goodness. Seriously? That was NBC News. The left anointed her the border czar. Joe Biden appointed her the border czar, but today she's not the border czar. You must be racist if you're talking about Kamala Harris and you're not saying how she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh, good Lord. This is unbelievable, folks. Now we turn our attention from that to an issue that recently Ernst Rutz was criticized for working for the Afrikaner Foundation organization, working to protect and guard the cultural norms of the Afrikaner community. Many right-wing Afrikaners attacked him and say he doesn't speak for us, but he was attacked by a content creator on YouTube who said that this is not Rainbow Nation. This is not Rainbow Nation. Well, gee, I wonder why some Afrikaners feel that they're under assault. Maybe it might be something like this. Not from a woman who posted an unfortunate, bigoted Facebook post and whose life was destroyed as an estate agent. Not from a woman who'd been carjacked and nearly murdered and was distraught and in shock and called a black police officer unfortunate, inappropriate names and was imprisoned as a felon. That's not who this came from. Not members of society in private who have no influence over your lives, over your freedom, over your wealth, over your educational opportunities. No, that came from private citizens. But apparently that is beyond the pale. And it is wrong. But this comes from an elected official who sits in government, who decides what your fate is every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just cover this one very quickly here. Let me get there. This is what occurred today in camera, in session at the Tshwane City Council in South Africa, in Gauteng province. Watch this and listen to this garbage.
I will be happy to mure. That will be nice, an Afrikaner blood. I want the blood of an Afrikaner. Bring the blood of an Afrikaner. I want it.
Can you believe this garbage? Racist rants coming from the EFF, calling for the blood of Afrikaners, all in response to Celia Spring, who simply wants government cleaned up. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Well, of course you can believe it. This right in line with the garbage taking place at Pretoria Girls High School, Pretoria High School for Girls, in which teachers and students are being racially targeted because they're white and lies being perpetrated about them, and the instant demonization of racist issues at the school, when actually the racism is being perpetrated by other students who are falsely attacking the white students to get them down. It's unbelievable. Of course, the South African Human Rights Commission will say nothing. But they're hot on the case of Ronaldo Gas and his 16-year-old video that was altered and lied and falsely presented by Independent Online. Where is their retraction? Where is their admission that they were punked or they were complicit? One of the two happened. Either the Independent Online was punked because they didn't do their due diligence and research, because they were all too willing to believe that a white person was a racist simply based on, ooh, look what we found, look what we found. Either they were punked or they were complicit in the fraud and the demonization and the libel that has occurred here. You figured out. Yes, Rose Wheeler, he's racist and should be arrested, but nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Just like the scumbags who destroyed Union Station and who attacked the Liberty Bell yesterday. These people are domestic terrorists. It's unbelievable. This is not my video. I'm showing this video. This is what occurred yesterday. This is at Union Station in Washington, D.C. Now, how is it appropriate for people to deface public property? It's not. And listen to behavior. By the way, this person needs to be turned over to the police because this is vandalism at a minimum and many other things beyond that.
ask why you're spray painting?
Now he asked a legitimate question. May I ask why you're spray painting? This is an independent journalist who has lived in the Middle East, who speaks Arabic, at least enough of it, more than this evil spawn of immigrants to this country who doesn't even speak Arabic. Watch this. Watch the rest of this.
I'm just asking. That's my job.
What do you mean it's your job?
It's my job to ask questions.
What are you doing here? You don't support Palestine?
What are you doing here? You don't support Palestine? Now watch the racial slur and the anti-Semitic slur that comes out of this foul-mouthed, feces-producing individual's mouth. Watch this. Watch what she says next. He's asking questions as an independent journalist because she's vandalizing public property. And the arrogance of this toad with a nose ring and the hideous tattoos on her chest and arm.
I support the free speech of the United States of America.
Now, there's nothing objectionable to what he just said. I support free speech in the United States of America, including her right to free speech. Free speech, not vandalism. But listen to what this little toady says next.
Support Palestine.
I lived in Jordan for 6 months, and I believe America is the last hope that we have. That's what I believe in.
So get the fuck out of here.
I'm here doing my job.
Here, guys. Yeah.
So this racial anti-Semite Jew hater tells him to get the F out of there. He's standing in public property, filming her criminal acts, and she starts trying to get him assaulted by people going, Zionist, look, Zionist, because he's not willing to destroy public property like this scumbag does. Oh my gosh, this world is so upside down. This person should be in a detention cell in Washington, D.C. at this moment for her acts.
Okay. Sure.
Look at this. Palestinian flags flying. Palestinian flag flying on that stand there. They later ripped down the American flags off of those flagpoles and put up Palestinian flags. These are insurrectionists painting Gaza all over the place. Look at them. They're all mostly doofus, moronic, privileged, sad, whiny little white bitches is what they are. That's what they are. That's what they are. Look at the crowd. Mostly little white bitches who are privileged. So he says to her in Arabic something, and she doesn't even understand it because it's the evil spawn of Arabic immigrants to America. She can't even be bothered to learn her parents' mother tongue. Her response is, don't take it back. Don't take it back. You're a liar. Well, how do you refute that? I want the blood of an Afrikaner. I want the more of an Afrikaner. How do you refute that? You can't have a debate with people like that. You can't have a conversation with people like that. These are radical lunatics who must be punished for their misdeeds. Tolerating lawlessness is what leads to this. Bunch of spoiled little white pansies whose parents deserve to be punished for raising such treasonous, ill-informed morons in this country. That took place at Union Station in Washington, D.C. That's where that was taking place. Well, let me say hello to everybody in the chat before we get the news stories now that we've led off this broadcast with quite a bit here. Sean Gunter's here. Kodwa, yes, lots more to go. Skolk Yandrea's here. Sue Walsh, Master Kotza. John Huchin in from Arizona. I did apologize for being a few minutes tardy, folks. I was publishing another video about that incident that occurred in the Shawnee City Council. That video is now up, so after this is over, if you want to go watch it, please feel free to do that. Yes, I am wearing old khaki today. There's a little goat right there, dark green. George is in from Heckport. Ernst is here. Sedgefield as well. Debbie Moray is here. And reminding everyone to hit the like button. 137 people here and just 57 likes. Come on, brother. You got to help out. Come on. You know I'm going to push this. You know I'm going to push the button, right? You know, it says easy.
That was easy.
Oh, so easy. 58. That's one more. A little bit better. All right. So not that it really matters. I know that YouTube, their oppression on the channel really doesn't affect things doing that, but we hope it does. Arctic says 2 days in it and Kamala Harris is already losing support. Well, she's getting lots of support from the fake media. That's for sure. What else we got here? Teresa, Janet Liddy's in from South Carolina, Jackie Rice, Brian Lawrence, and Courtney McBride is in from Utah, the Beehive State. Brian Lawrenson, Rennie Fund, Charmaine, welcome to Danke Chris für die muy Afrikaanse Liedje. Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Giselle is a lovely performer. I did get to see a video, which I don't have permission to show. The other day, I was sent a video of El Jose. Remember, El Jose was just a tiny little baby when we started this channel. El Jose is now 5, and she's riding a bicycle without training wheels. That was lovely. It was beautiful, but it's not my place to share that. I just thought I'd share the story with you. It's a beautiful little photo. Also, there's some number plates in the vehicle in there, and I don't want people to see that. So anyway, beautiful stuff. Anyway. Ursula Windsor says, love the song. Thank you. You're very welcome, Ursula. It's my pleasure. Debbie, you're welcome. Aaron says, what the hell does it mean? I don't know. One of my diving buddies on the West Coast was, okay. I don't care for Bibi at all. Israel needs a strong, powerful, and secular leader. Bibi Netanyahu is a strong, powerful, and a secular leader. He's not an Orthodox Jew. He's a very strong leader, and he's very powerful. So you got all the things you asked for, even though you don't like him. At least she is unburdened. That's right. Kamala Harris is unburdened by what has been. Charles Van Onselen, Anthony Smee again, back. Lynette Orr says, good day and evening. Beautiful to hear the Murata all the way from across the big blue sea. Well, Lynette, where's the big blue sea? Are you on this side of the Atlantic, or are you in Asia, or are you in South Africa? Biden's speech was cringy. Was very cringeworthy. It's also devoid of factual information. It was pretty entertaining from that standpoint. Charmaine's here. Pinky, oh my goodness! Pinky says, brilliant. Welcome. Jessica, how you doing? How's it going? How's life here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? Patrick Green is here. Charmaine, I haven't been up to Scranton since you started coming on the show. My goodness, it's been a long time since I've been up there. I used to go to hockey all the time. Maybe this year I'll go to hockey up there. It's a lot cheaper than going to a game. I can stay in a hotel in Scranton and go to a game and spend less money than going to the Giant Center to watch Hershey play. So I can watch him up there. Gus, Nick Muller, Anthony, listening to the song in Biden's head. That's what I was doing, listening to the song in Biden's head. Arbot is back. Laudi Monday says he loves Israel. You're not alone in that. Democrats like to rewrite history. True. Arc Precision is here. Viva Maga says Patrick Green. Anthony says maybe her next pronoun. Diane McMeekin, welcome to you again. No, she wasn't, but she was, but she didn't. I have no idea what Arctic is saying. I think that was the point. What the F is a border czar? Well, RJ, we had William Bennett appointed as the drug czar back during the Reagan administration. It's a term that was applied to someone given a special appointment to deal with a specific issue. We had the drug czar, we had an immigration czar, we had a border czar. It's not real, but now they're trying to disavow it because they know that immigration and the unlawful immigration has been a disaster for this country. And the left is desperately immediate trying to lie about the fact that it was her only job to stop the border crisis, and she didn't do anything. She went to the border once. Salem's case says, thanks, Colonel, for the news reporting you do, going through family problems and just want to be appreciative. Well, Salem's, I'm so sorry to hear you going through family problems. I hope it comes right for you, and fingers crossed, and I hope it comes whatever right is for you, whether that's together, apart, other things. I hope it comes right for you. Choco says, if Kamala wins, America will be undone from the burden that was. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And Allison Johnson, hello to you. And what else? I think everyone's in chat. Rose Wheeler, that's racist and should be arrested. Yep, agreed. Exal hom dit chi een lekker snotkop. Oh, okay, Charles. MAGA's bad. That's right. MAGA's evil. Bibi was well received in Washington by legitimate politicians, not by the scum who failed to do their job. Please let me know where to send the invitation to come more. It says Monre. Okay, Amanda. What else? Cowards that are the EFF will do a U-turn on what they meant faster than the VBS lost money. Yep. What this time? If you want to change, create it. Don't go and destroy things. Exactly. Chantal Boyson, welcome to you. Robert Rankin, good evening to you, sir. Pip Jacobs, Keith Alderson in from Coventry. Kurtz Verhova, Malema's mother is the smartest child. RPG says, anyone else been watching this season of America? Season 24 is a crazy one. Can't wait for the movie. Yeah, it will be a hell of a movie. I guess Dinesh D'Souza will make that, or it'll be Spike Lee. Maybe it's just me, but your mic sounds very poppy, especially in the low-end frequency. I don't know. Maybe it is. Should I switch to a different microphone? Is that better? Is that better? But then I have a shadow on my face. That's why I don't use this microphone. I use this for when I'm on the radio sort of thing, like I was interviewed earlier, or we have an intimate conversation. But let me go back to the other one. Thought it was the Bolsheviks got rid of all the czars. Yeah, how do we miss one? We missed a bunch. Devet says YouTube unsubscribed me for a second time. Yes, Devet, my number of subscribers has declined by over 20 subscribers in the past 3 days as YouTube has been removing subscribers. If you are a follower, a viewer, please be a subscriber. And please make a bookmark on my channel. And remember to go there occasionally if you don't go every day. Just go occasionally because YouTube will not promote my content if you're not there every single day. And even if you're there every single day, many people still don't get it promoted. And if you don't go to my site for a couple days or a couple weeks, you'll get taken out. They take you out. It's much better. Well, what? The purple one? We're back to the red one. Willem Therrett says good evening. And all right, let's get to the news, folks. I already did some of the news here. First off, Zizi Kodwa has resigned from Parliament. This is overdue, long overdue. This corruption accused ANC member. Kasatu says his deployment to the National Assembly was ill-considered. No, it was shameful is what it was. Labour Federation Kasatu, a key partner of the ANC in their tripartite alliance, welcomed the corruption-accused ANC MP Zizi Kodwa resignation, saying the decision to deploy him had been poorly thought out and ill-considered. Yeah. Same with Munir Palapala. He shouldn't be the president. It sent a painfully worrying question to society and the ANC's commitment to holding its public representatives accountable and its bold, necessary renewal campaign. Well, bold, necessary renewal campaign? Cyril Ramaphosa, Paul Mashatile, Gwede Mantashe, Digital Vibes, Zweli Mkhize, gone. All accused. They shouldn't be in the government. Let's get rid of all of them. Well, as I said, things crazy in Gauteng, the latest of which is the city of Johannesburg has secured a 2.5 billion rand loan from the French Development Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, rest assured that loan will never be repaid. So it's not a loan, it's a grant because it'll never be repaid to the French taxpayer. Johannesburg Finance MMC successfully secured a 2.5 billion rand loan so that the ANC coalition can loot that money. It's from the Agence Française du Développement, following weeks of intense opposition from the Metro Council. The extraordinary council meeting was called specifically to bring the loan back to council after it failed to pass a third time on July 9th. EFF is part of the leading coalition, part of the leading government of local unity, along with ANC, Patriotic Alliance, and minority parties, but did not vote with its coalition partners, seemingly because of the removal of its acre-leaning finance minister on June 12th due to unforeseen misalignment. So the EFF is part of the coalition, voted against this because their feelings were hurt because their corrupt official was removed. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Well, a nail-biting rescue. The industrialist from Port Elizabeth, Calvin Naidu, has been rescued. The 51-year-old who was kidnapped. Kidnapped businessman Calvin Naidu has been rescued. Police confirmed that Naidu was rescued on Thursday after his kidnapping on July 19th. The 51-year-old was kidnapped by 5 balaclava-clad criminals who pushed him off the road. On Thursday, recently appointed Minister of Police Senzo Mchunu commended the Hawks for their exemplary efforts. Wow. The successful rescue of Mr. Naidu is a testament to unwavering commitment and bravery of our law enforcement officers. The Hawks have once again demonstrated their ability to operate with precision and effectiveness in the face of complex criminal activities. It's a shame they're not nearly as effective as their predecessor, the Scorpions, but hey, they went after ANC politicians. Don't do that, Hawks. You won't be around much longer. South Africa mounting a bid here in the United States to ensure that it keeps its illegitimate presence in the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act with its duty-free access to the American market in place, even though South Africa is not qualified due to its governance failures and its abuse of U.S. foreign policy and our national security interests. South Africa is on a diplomatic drive to retain its status as a beneficiary of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, with Trade, Industry, and Competition Minister Parks Towell saying that early and long-term reauthorization of the legislation will provide policy certainty for investors to spur industrialization on the continent. Okay. Interesting. He was speaking at a panel on Wednesday on the sidelines of the AGOA Forum in D.C. South African politicians contend that without South Africa, AGOA, which intersects with the U.S. broader national security interests, would be less successful because the country's developed infrastructure plays a critical role in facilitating the movement of goods. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's just a fairy tale. South Africa's infrastructure does not facilitate the movement of goods from Ghana to the U.S. and vice versa, or from Nigeria to the U.S. and vice versa, or Ethiopia or Tanzania or even the DRC. No. Maybe into Botswana, maybe into Namibia, maybe into Zimbabwe, Eswatini, and Mozambique, but not the rest of Africa. That's just a fantasy fairy tale, grasping at straws, trying to keep South Africa relevant when they're not even qualified to be in AGOA. Yes, the Salt Lake City will host the 2034 Winter Olympics, and they in Calgary were the last good ones. Since then, they've been pretty lame, so we'll see what happens. But of course, the last time I was in Salt Lake City, we got stuck with Mitt, the fake Republican Romney. Remember him? Yeah, wasn't he the guy? Former ward councilor in the dock accused of extortion and intimidation. Wow! Say it ain't so. More criminals in government. A former ward councilor in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District Municipality in Northwest Province faces extortion charges after he allegedly demanded 50,000 Rand protection fee from a contractor installing fiber. Lethinokokolo Molefi, 39, appeared in the Clark-Storp Magistrates Court on Wednesday on charges of intimidation, extortion, and obstruction at the construction site. Well, there you go. Well, if you build something in South Africa, you really got to feel for your life. The construction mafia is even in government. They have mafia members in government, no doubt. Well, the National Assembly will reconsider the idiotic legislation that was given to Cyril Ramaphosa to allow people to donate whatever they want to political parties and candidates without any repercussions or reporting it. Yep, that's what's going to happen finally. A non-governmental organization's affidavit warns that a lacuna in the law poses a risk of abuse in the framework for private funding of political parties. Wow. Now, the resolution that went through the National Assembly back in May left it to Ramaphosa to determine the threshold for declaration of political funding and the limit of a single donation by an individual or entity within a financial year. Yes, the proposed draft resolution set the threshold 100,000 Rand and funding limit at 15 million as previously pertaining to Political Party Funding Act, the PPFA. But in light of the election, they changed the law to allow the ANC to take donations without revealing to anybody where the money came from. Corrupt, crooked, underhanded, dirty? Yep, every bit true. Every bit true. Well, the Gauteng train strike, the Hull train strike is over. NUMSA has agreed to a 6.8% wage increase. The National Union Mine Workers said that it reached a deal with the Hull train operator, Bombela Operating Company, over wages. The two parties have agreed to a one-year 6.8% wage agreement, according to Business Day. And coincidentally, not coincidentally, prices on the Hull train have just went up. Well, they will. They will. There's Courtney McBride's super chat at $1.99 saying Salt Lake City will host the 2034 Winter Olympics. Yep. A former Mug and Bean employee, a manager, is on the run after being caught pillaging money from his business. Former Mug and Bean manager at Kruger National Park is on the run after allegedly stealing about R1 million. Ronald McKenna Gaza, 45, has appeared before the Bushbuck Ridge Magistrates Court facing theft and fraud charges. Did that on Wednesday. His appearance follows a warrant of arrest that was authorized and executed by the Hawks, Nelspruit-based serious commercial crime investigation. He was released on $20,000 bail, and he hit the road. It's alleged that during July 2022, Kos was employed by Gemla Holdings, working at the Mug and Bean franchise in Lower Sabi Rest Camp. The suspect authorized cash payments from the cash money received from the daily sales. He attached false invoices in support of these cash payments, reported to have been issued by South African Liquor Commandant for stock. Yep. Wow. He believed he committed the offense alongside a co-accused, a Zimbabwean man named of Amos Tinyene Kampanyena, age 44. Well, more crooks. In neighboring Namibia, concerns about land tenure, which is preventing the green revolution. A dispute in Namibia over access to diamond-rich land around the town of Luderitz is now threatening to derail major energy projects. At the heart of discord are vast tracts of desert land surrounding Luderitz and Elizabeth Bay, 25 kilometers to the south, that form part of the mining license held by the Spergebiet Diamond Mining Company, and which companies need for their projects. At the moment, the ministry and license holder are in talks to find the best solution. Besides a proposed 800-megawatt gas-to-power plant, Hyphen Energy's $10 billion green hydrogen project and 2 wind farms are among those potentially affected by trying to take the land for diamond mining away from the diamond miners who have the concession. Who will win that one? Israeli military has recovered the bodies of 5 victims of Hamas's crimes against humanity, 4 service members and a school teacher. Israeli military says recovered the bodies of 5 Israelis taken to Gaza as hostages during the attack on October 7th. The bodies of kindergarten teacher Maya Goren, as well as soldiers Sergeant Major Raved Arez Katz, Master Sergeant Oren Golden, Staff Sergeant Tomar Aramias, and Sergeant Kirill Brodsky were found during an operation in the Khan Yunis area. Military said it had determined that Miss Gorin was murdered in captivity while the soldiers were killed in combat on October 7th and their bodies abducted. The announcement means 111 of the 251 people taken hostage are still being held, including 39 who the military says are presumed to be dead. How ghoulish do you have to be and sadistic to take the bodies of your enemy away? That's just sick. That's just sick. Well, Joe Biden's bridge to Gaza failed epically at a cost of a lot of money, man. A lot of money. First time Biden announced that he would put a pier out there to deliver supplies to Gazan refugees, people said, yep. It wasn't until early 2024 the idea came up, and the situation got more desperate in Gaza. It involved 1,000 American military personnel at a cost of $230 million. And it lasted just days as the tide ripped it apart. But hey, good news. We learned some lessons, and the military got a real-world application use of that new bridging technology to put a pier on a beach. Never mind that most of the aid didn't even get to Palestinians. But that's not important. Joe Biden's failures aren't something we want to focus on here, because it's all about Kamala now. Kamala. Hey, folks, we can be unburdened by what has been. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Just ask Kamala. The following announcement is an unpaid endorsement or non-endorsement for the Harris campaign for president.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know?
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened.
Sorry, I always do my best, Kamala Harris, First Nation. Japan's population continues to decline as it becomes more elderly and less Japanese. A country that's very xenophobic is dealing with influx of foreign nationals.
I can imagine what can be. And
Stop that, Kamala. Stop that. Where is she coming from? She's all over the place. No, Patrick, Ronaldo's not back. Why would you think Ronaldo's back? Can you unburden me? Yes. Well, Japan's population shrank for the 15th consecutive year as it grapples with a low birth rate. Number of Japanese residents fell by 861,000, almost 1% from the year before. It's the steepest decline ever to just 121 million people. Number of foreign residents rose by 300,000. That's 11% to 3.3 million, hitting a record high since the ministry began collecting the data in 2013. Since peaking in 2009, Japan's population has been in constant decline. The number of deaths in the country was the highest since the ministry began collecting related data in 1979. Also experienced a net outflow of 7,000 to 10,000 people each year, which is greater than the number of returnees. Wow, that's people moved out of Japan for more than 2 years. As growth sputters, Beijing tries to jolt China's flailing economy. Surprise cuts in interest rates reflect growing concern that China's economy is struggling with weak growth, heavy debts, and falling prices. Never mind communism. China's central bank took new steps to shore up the country's sputtering economy, highlighting officials' growing anxiety about growth only days after leader Xi Jinping set out his long-term vision to transform China into a technological powerhouse to rival the United States. Well, good luck with that, Xi Jinping. German politicians finally getting their act together, dealing with the terrorist in their midst. German politicians demand better airport security after activist blockades. That's the Frankfurt airport right there, Frankfurt am Main. German politicians demanded better protection for the country's airports today after climate zealots were able to breach fences and disrupt air traffic for the second day in a row. German Interior Minister Nancy Faeser, whose ministry wants to punish unauthorized airfield access with up to 2 years in jail, and she should, criticized the blockades as dangerous, dumb, and criminal, as well as airport operators for not being better at securing their sites. Yep, traffic at Frankfurt Airport, the busiest in Germany, was halted on Thursday after zealots blocked runways by gluing themselves to the tarmac. Well, I say run over them. Just run over them. They won't be glued there for long. Morons. Well, the Olympics is underway, even though the opening ceremony just happened. It's underway. The Olympics. And the Sevens has already been a major disappointment for Blitzbach and USA Eagle fans, as both backed themselves into the medal round. USA and South Africa had abysmal opening stage performances, and we're going to talk about South Africa winning just 1 of 3 contests. My goodness. And having just a positive 27-point differential, USA with a negative differential in the same boat. Rugby Sevens in the Paris Olympics. New Zealand comes top of the pool, followed by Ireland with 2 wins out of 3. Then comes South Africa trailing with 1 win out of 3. In the men's pool C, the USA in the same situation, except they had a draw, not 2 losses. So the Eagles get 9 points to advance, and South Africa just 7 points on the log. So the top 2 teams in each pool, plus the best third place finisher advances. So there you go. So USA and South Africa back into the medal stage, which takes place today, folks. It's that quick. We're already in the sevens medal stages today. Let me get this up. So today is July 25th at 9 p.m. local time, which will be 3 this afternoon. New Zealand will play South Africa, and that is for the quarterfinals. USA will play at 10:30. So here are the brackets for sevens today in the Olympic competition. New Zealand, South Africa at 9 p.m. It's going to be 10 o'clock for South Africans, Argentina, France, Fiji, Ireland, Australia, United States. I say New Zealand, France, Ireland, and Australia go forward. It's not what I want. I'd rather see USA, Ireland, Argentina, and South Africa go forward, but don't hold your breath on that. Oh, the Olympics are underway. Who cares? Olympic soccer gets off to a terrible start, although I was watching a short while ago. Let me see if I still have that on. Oh, wow. Japan had a 1-0 lead. It looks like they're going to lose 2-1 to Spain. They're in the extra minutes here. Extra time. Japan gave up 2 goals after leading 1-0 over Spain. Shame. I really hope the Japanese will win this. But Spain is going to pull it out, it looks like. So that's going on right now. Let me just get rid of that. Ireland over Fiji. Yeah, Charles, that's my flyer. You got to take a flyer. But Olympic soccer got off to disaster as Moroccan fans poured onto the field in anger. Olympic soccer gets off to a violent, chaotic start as Morocco fans rush the field versus Argentina. At Saint Etienne in Paris, the Olympic men's soccer tournament got off to a violent, chaotic start yesterday with Morocco's shocking 2-1 victory against 2-time gold medalist Argentina. The result tells only part of the story after a dramatic end to the match in Saint Etienne, which had to be suspended for nearly 2 hours when furious Morocco fans ran on the pitch and threw bottles from the stands to protest a late goal by Argentina in the 16th minute of added time. 16 minutes of added time. What the heck is that? Moments before play resumed, Christian Medina's disputed goal was disallowed by the video replay, and Morocco held on to a 2-1 victory. Wow. Nothing like violence at a soccer game. Joe Biden says he quit the presidential race to save democracy. U.S. President Joe Biden has told Americans in a televised address that he decided to end his faltering re-election campaign in a bid to save democracy. He said that his presidency merited a second term, delusional, but that nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. What, by stealing elections from Democratic voters? Wow. His first public appearance since he went in hiding after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Yep. Somehow I got my things out of order here, so I'm going to have to move this over here. That got out of order somehow. So Biden sidesteps the truth in his address last night, telling all kinds of whoppers. It was his first chance to define how he'll be judged. In a rare television address from the Oval Office, his comments since he abruptly ended his election campaign, he spoke of his accomplishments, spoke of his humble roots. He sang the praise of American people. He said the future of American democracy lies in their hands. What he didn't do, despite saying he would always level with Americans, was provide a direct explanation for the biggest question of the day. He didn't say why he's become the first incumbent president to abandon a re-election bid just a few months before voting begins. And that's what history books will be most interested in. Yep, he lied. And he also, BBC is not going to call him out for all his lies about how he's the only president in the 21st century who didn't have wars on his watch. That's a lie. One of California's largest vineyards is going bankrupt because Americans aren't drinking wine. Sorry about that, folks. One of America's largest wine producers has filed for bankruptcy, blaming Americans drinking less after the COVID lockdowns. Vintage Wine Estates, the 15th largest producer in the U.S., filed for Chapter 11 on Wednesday. Now, this company's only been around since 2009 when the former CEO, Pat Roney, added 2 more vineyards to his Napa Girard winery that he'd owned for years. Now it's 30 wine and spirit brands. Wines are sold under the brands BR, Cohen, Close Pegasa, Firesteed, Kunda, and Layer Cake. I'm sorry, has anyone heard of any of these wines? I've never heard of them. Never heard of a single wine. Now, this is the latest in a string of bankruptcies under the brilliant, perfect economy brought to us by the Biden-Harris team. This week, appliance and furniture chain Conn's filed for bankruptcy, 500 stores going under. Express, a mall staple, filed for bankruptcy back in April. Instead, we shut 95 Express outlets, clothing stores. Rue 21 in May filed for bankruptcy. They're closing all 543 U.S. stores. And Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy in May, closing 100 restaurants. And we found out this week that they owe $21 million for shrimp alone. In early June, Mexican chain Rubio's closed 48 locations in California, and they're also filing for bankruptcy. But this is Joe Biden's Wondrous America. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, there's always bankruptcies in business, even the best of times. But these businesses are not going under because they have managed their businesses poorly, but because they've been brought down by minimum wage cost and also taxes and regulation and the languishing economy of the Biden-Harris regime. Well, Democrats have approved rules to cook and fix it so that Kamala will get the nomination. Democrats Wednesday approved rules the party will use to choose their presidential nominee, with voting to officially nominate Kamala Harris likely begin on August 1st. Comes less than 2 weeks after Joe Biden cowardly dropped out of the race. But here's the thing. The DNC has cooked the results again. They're stealing the vote from the people because they've given anyone who wants to challenge Kamala Harris just 3 days to file. 3 days. Yep, the timeline approved by the Convention Rules Committee could also push Harris to pick a running mate in the next week. If anyone's going to challenge Vice President Kamala Harris for the Democratic presidential nomination, they only have until the weekend to do it. Delegates to the Democratic National Convention Rules Committee approved a virtual roll call, moving ahead with the July 30th deadline for candidates seeking to collect signatures to appear on the virtual roll. The virtual roll must be completed by August 7th, to comply with the Ohio ballot access. Wow. So they've just stolen it from anyone who wants to compete against her because it's impossible to get signatures in 3 days without the support of the party, which none of them are going to get. Southwest Airlines breaks with a 50-year tradition and will now begin seat assignments. This is big news. Southwest Airlines, where people just bum rush to get on the plane based on what they pay for tickets, will now have seats assigned. They plan to drop the tradition of more than 50 years and start assigning seats and selling premium seating for customers who want more legroom. Said Thursday that it's been studying seating options and is making the change because passenger preferences have shifted. The moves could also generate revenue and boost financial performance. Of course, that's the real reason why Southwest is doing it, not because preferences have changed. None of us want tiny-ass little seats where our legs are jammed into our hips and we're physically incapacitated getting off the plane. Nobody wants that, Southwest. And we also don't want to pay extra. Well, folks, astronauts are stranded in space, courtesy of the United Launch Alliance's failure to pull things off. 2 astronauts aboard Boeing's Starliner remain stuck in space after the 45-day window that they were supposed to be there at the max. The capsule, which arrived at the space station on June 6, was initially approved to stay for up to 45 days, but with no return date, the astronaut stay has been extended indefinitely. Now, I remember the Big Bang Theory when Howard Wolowitz was up in space, and he was telling his wife, he said, in the 50s, they left dogs up here. Now they're leaving humans up there in space. Wow. Well, Washington Post, Max Boot, author and neocon, is in a lot of trouble because of his wife. Yep, Max Boot is under fire after his wife accused of being an unregistered foreign agent for South Korea. Now, Max Boot once accused Donald Trump of being a Russian agent. Well, his wife is a Korean agent. A scumbag Max Boot, the neocon Max Boot. The lying sack of shit Max Boot called Donald Trump a Russian asset. Well, your wife is a spy for Korea. The Justice Department charged Boot's wife, Sumi Terry, a former CIA analyst and senior official of the National Security Council, last week with acting as a secret agent for South Korea's intelligence service in exchange for luxury gifts like Christian Louboutin shoes and Cartier. Wow. Max Boot's wife is a Korean spy. But Max Boot says that Donald Trump is a Russian asset. I think Max Boot needs to shut up. Well, the 9 of the 10 fastest growing cities in America are located where? Does anybody know where the 9 of the 10 fastest growing cities are? Not time to put up a poll. Go ahead and answer the question, folks. There's over 100 of you here. Top 10 cities, fastest growth in America. 9 of the 10 come in one state. And I'll give you a hint. It's not New York. There are 50 states. Which one do you think it is? 50 states. 9 of the 10 fastest growing cities in the country are in this. I'll come back to it and see if you guys get it right. Well, what's dark oxygen? We've heard about dark matter and dark energy. What's dark oxygen? Dark oxygen. Well, scientists found evidence that oxygen is being generated from the floors, the depths of the ocean. As they went through the ocean, they expected oxygen levels to decline because there's no photosynthesis in the depths where it's completely dark in the ocean. How could you possibly have oxygen down there? Well, they've discovered dark oxygen. Dark oxygen. Florida, Utah, and Texas are three of the answers so far. We'll come back to it. Dark oxygen, which may put into question the entire concept of how life first came about on this planet through photosynthesis. Is it in fact through photosynthesis, or maybe it was through oxygen leaching up from the ocean? Wow. Black polymetallic sea modules, the nickel, magnesium, and cobalt-rich minerals, these balls form naturally deep under the sea. For decades, scientists have floated theories about dark matter, which is believed to hold galaxies together by its gravitational pull. The enigma of dark matter continues, and now scientists discover what they're calling dark oxygen on the ocean's floors. A recent study published in Nature Geoscience shows oxygen emitted from mineral deposits 4,000 meters, 13,000 feet below the ocean surface on the seafloor of the Pacific Ocean's Clarion-Clipperton Zone. The depth is almost half the length of the tallest peak of Mount Everest. The study by Andrew Sweetman, professor of Scottish Association of Marine Sciences, and a team lead of the institution's Seafloor Ecology and Biochemical Research Group, provides evidence that there's an additional oxygen source on the planet apart from the oxygen produced by photosynthesis. Up until now, it's been well understood by scientists that the planet's only source of oxygen is from photosynthetic organisms like plants and algae that produce oxygen for humans and other plants to breathe. Well, not anymore. Now we're finding oxygen being produced in the depths of the ocean. All right, I'm going to go back to the story now. For those of you who guessed Tennessee, incorrect. Florida, incorrect. The top 9 of 10 fastest cities in America are from the great state of Texas. Growth in many Texas towns may be attributed in part to the state's relatively lower cost of living compared to many other states. Between 2020 and 2023, it seems to have been true of population growth. Everything's bigger in Texas. 9 of the 10 U.S. cities and towns where populations grew the fastest clip during that period are found in the Lone Star State. Wow. There you go. Well, let's hope Trump gets to debate Kamala Harris because he'll destroy her. Ladies and gentlemen, a couple more things here to cover. First one is Mercury, the planet Mercury. You think there's diamonds in the Karoo? You think there's diamonds in Botswana? You think there's diamonds in Liberia and the Congo? No, that's nothing. Apparently, Mars has under the mantle a massive amount of diamond. Wow, this is crazy. Mercury has Mercury has a layer of diamond 10 miles thick, 16 kilometers deep. NASA's Messenger missions reveal that Mercury, the solar system's tiniest planet and the closest to the sun, hides a big secret. The solar system's tiniest planet may be hiding a big secret. Using data from NASA's Messenger spacecraft, scientists determined that a 10-mile thick diamond mantle may lie beneath the crust of Mercury. Mercury's long puzzled scientists as it possesses many qualities that aren't common to other solar system planets. A very dark surface, remarkably dense core, and the premature end of its volcanic era. Also among these puzzles are patches of graphite. These patches have led scientists to suggest that Mercury's early history, a tiny planet, had a carbon-rich magma ocean. But now we're finding out that there's diamonds there. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Wow. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Olbermann, the wackadoodle who once upon a time was a sportscaster on ESPN, the guy who lost his marbles a long time ago, is losing them once again with embarrassing tweets. This guy ought to lay off his Twitter account. It's worse than Trump. Keith Olbermann deletes humiliating tweet. A reminder, this is what he wrote on July 21st. A reminder, Ronnie Jackson isn't a doctor, which is perfect because Trump wasn't hit by a bullet. Okay, first off, Ronnie Jackson is a doctor, moron. I guess he's not bright. He saw that Ronnie Jackson is a representative in Congress. I guess he didn't realize that people actually had jobs before they went into government. Yeah, and he used to be Trump's personal physician. Keith Olbermann's embarrassing tweet about the St. Louis Cardinals is no longer up. Olbermann went viral after accusing the Cardinals of being Nazis and demanding their stadium be imploded after believing a home run celebration mimicked Donald Trump fist pumping. There's just one huge problem with Olbermann's claim. Alec Burleson and the rest of the Cardinals weren't honoring Trump's reaction to being shot. They were pretending to be DJs because Burleson was a rapper DJ back in the day. Olbermann didn't do his basic homework before demanding the players be banned for life because he's an asshat. Yep. Made a fool of himself. He deleted his insane tweet. This is the tweet right there. Unfortunately, screenshots are forever. You can see a screenshot of the now deleted tweet. He says, at Major League Baseball, ban these guys from baseball for life, confiscate the Cardinals franchise, and implode the stadium. So he calls for violence, and he calls for imprisonment of people for, he says the Cardinals equal Trump Nazis, stick to sports, F the St. Louis Cardinals, America's had enough of this crap. No, we've had enough of Keith Olbermann and your demonic leftists. You guys are losing the plot. Yeah, unbelievable. It's a great example why you shouldn't tweet something unless you know it's true. Oberman thought the Cardinals players were honoring Donald Trump with a celebration. It wasn't true at all. The celebration was tied to Burleson's music career in his younger days. Instead of doing some basic homework, Oberman, who's lazy as shit, decided to accuse players of being Nazis, demanded they be banned for life, and said the team's stadium should be imploded. Absolutely insane behavior. Unhinged. Furthermore, why would it have been a problem if they were mimicking Trump's reactions to being shot? It was a badass moment, whether you like Trump or not. The man took a bullet in the air and instead of panicking, got up and hit people with a fist bump and shouted, "Fight." It was simply incredible, but Oberman believes if you do a celebration model off the moment that you're a Nazi, his conduct is nothing short of embarrassing and humiliating. What do you think? Well, I think Keith Olbermann is an asshat, and he always has been an asshat. That's my thought. The guy's a disaster. Well, thank you to the 110 people currently here, the 108 likes. Appreciate that. Went up from 57 when I pushed this button a little while ago.
That was easy.
Yeah, check it out, folks. Aggravated assault when Trump headbutted the slug. Let me go back to the chat and see if anything significant has come up while I was doing the news. Woo, we got that done in under an hour. That was cool. All right, there's the super chat from Courtney. Thank you for that, Courtney. By the way, if anyone's curious, we're not doing so well this month. Let me just take a look here real quick at revenue for the month analytics. Let's go to revenue. Come on, give me the revenue tab. There we go. We are at we're at about 1/4 of last month. There's only 6 days left in this month, and we only have 25% of the revenue of last month. It was a good month last month. Not a great month. Not like back in the day when the channel actually made money, but certainly paid for a few bills. But this month we're just 1/3. The ad revenue has dropped precipitously as YouTube's shadow banning has come back into effect. It's really shameful what they do. So my Schwane racist insults video has, let me see how many views on that. 270 so far, but a lot of you are watching right now, so probably another 100 of you might watch it after this is over, be my guess. I would hope anyway. So got 13 comments. Already got 1 dislike from the typical lunatic who's self-pleasuring himself right now. Right, democracy is a fancy word for communism maximum. No, democracy is tyranny of the majority. That's what democracy is. It's nothing more than tyranny of the majority. Yep. Is dark oxygen with elites breathe? I think it is. Dark oxygen is probably caused by climate change. No, it's caused by minerals releasing the oxygen that was trapped in there a long time ago, or it's created by it. People did not choose her. The elites did. Yep, that's what's going on with that. Devet says, bad surname, Booth. Okay, sorry, I don't know what that's about. Bobby B's here. Got to be Texas or Florida. Most states don't have that many cities. Oh, most states have plenty of cities. But yes, it is Texas. Radine is in from Italy. Salve. Elon should start a diamond mine on Mars. I said Mars. It's Mercury. I misspoke. Sorry. Mercury, which will probably inflate the price long term. And actually lower the price. I mean, you bring all those diamonds back. Government looting a nation. Hey, Patrick. Diamonds are carbon-like graphite. Correct. Kathy from Mullen. Hola. They found sulfur on Mars. Okay. Where is the days when you tell people to think before speaking? Now there's two things. Exactly. Stay curious, says electrolysis as source in my estimate. Yeah, no, that's probably right. That's probably where it comes from. That's a good estimation there. Devet Martin says De Beers buys up and stockpiles diamonds, keep them from the market. Diamonds are not that rare. Gold or germanium probably better to mine on another planet. I would think that platinum group metals would be the best thing to take from asteroids, but that's just my thoughts on it. Patrick W. with a little super chat coming in there. Thank you. I do think, though, that a lot of Americans have woken up and they will not vote for Kamala. Well, I hope so, PK, but don't hold your breath. The media is already on its way. I mean, let's just run through that again. I mean, that's amazing. We're being told today endlessly that Kamala Harris was never the border czar, that this is Republican lies. Except the media are the ones told us she was the czar, and not just the media. Not just the media. It's also Joe Biden himself who told us that. It's unbelievable, this step they try, folks. Yeah, so this is Kamala talking about going to the border. Thank you for the super chat, Patrick. Appreciate that. This is Kamala. Oh, here, this one's brilliant. This one I love.
The governor and I, and we were all.
This is brilliant. Okay, you ready for this? This is brilliant. This is what she had to say about time. Kamala Harris. Here we go. This is 2 years ago.
The governor and I, and we were all doing a tour of the library here, and talking about the significance of the passage of time. Right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do.
Significance in the passage of time. Okay, all right, gotcha.
To create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
She has no idea what she's talking about and no idea why she's on stage. She's a complete idiot. And that's why she says stuff like this. Joe just mumbles and stumbles or uses the wrong words and misconjugates verbs. But Kamala just starts making stuff up. Yeah, it's a very good story if you're high. And then here's John Kirby defending. Oh, here you go. Check this out. So this is the border that Kamala Harris is defending as the border czar. You ready for this? This is the border. This is our border. National Guardsmen down there. This is what they've done to America. This is what they've done to America, the border invasion, these scumbags in the Biden regime, the Democratic Party. This is what they've done to America. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. So, but let's listen in again as the media tell us that Kamala Harris was never the border czar. But interspersed with that, of course, are all the times they told us that's not the South African border. That's wrong, wrong, wrong. You can be facetious, but don't say that because it looks like a true statement. The South Africans don't wear that, and they also don't say English like that, so give me a break. That is the American border, courtesy of the Biden regime. That video needs to be played endlessly for people to see what's happening to our soldiers and our border guards at the border, courtesy of this. But let's listen in to the media tell us how Kamala Harris is not the border czar, because it's Republican racists and misogynists who are simply trying to perpetrate this nonsense.
Quote unquote borders.
It's simply not true. It's not true according to the demon rats in the media.
Czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar.
What? She wasn't the border czar, but she was the border czar. Are we going to be unburdened by the truth here? Are we going to be unburdened by the truth, by the media? This is so obvious. How do people, I mean, people have to see this, do they not? Do they have to see this?
That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Well, that's what she was.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. People are actually going to fall for this. That's the sad part. People are going to fall for that, ladies and gentlemen. She wasn't the border czar. That's what the media story is today. Just like the one yesterday in the Washington Post and the New York Times. That's the Washington Compost and New York Slimes. Well, black voters are flocking to Kamala Harris. No, they're not. Kamala Harris leads Donald Trump in a nationwide poll. No, she doesn't. People love Kamala Harris. No, they don't. Artie says, I know that, but every Republican has a different policy, whereas the Dems are united, so the Republicans' policies are easy to attack. That's correct, PK. Abortion is not. This is going to be a lie. They already started. Kamala Harris will focus on returning reproductive rights to murder children to women. No, she won't. We will pass a law, legalize. No, you won't, because it violates the Constitution. The federal government has no purview there. It's already been decided. You cannot pass a law. You have to have a constitutional amendment to grant that power to the federal government. Anthony says, Chris is my ministry of truth. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. And Ernst says, all that metal's already scrap metal dealers. Nah. Scrap metal dealers don't make that much money in America. It's not like South Africa where you take all the copper and melt it down. Although it does happen here too. Wow, that's crazy. That's just crazy. Oh my goodness. My mind's going blank now, folks. I don't know what to talk about. Just teasing. 121 likes. And people are leaving. I guess 1 hour is the limit of what people can hang around. But if you're leaving, please make sure you go watch my video on the Schwane racist insults. Let me change that a little bit there. I've got the title. Racist insults. There we go. Got it? Alrighty. So, PK says, I'm pro-life. I do not believe that just because some chick wants to sleep around gives the right to kill a baby. There might be a small percentage that does not fall under, is what he says. Artie says, dinner time. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that I can blame it all on Morning Shot and Roman Kabanak, who stole my 5 p.m. slot during Rona. JHB jail raid. What's going on there? What happened in Johannesburg? What happened in Johannesburg? Yeah, now YouTube, folks, if you have a subscription or if you're watching right now, make sure you hit the subscription button, refresh the page, and make sure it says you're still subscribed because YouTube is actively, it's not just me, a number of content creators have been commenting on this in the past 2 weeks, how YouTube is stripping them of subscribers. Helena Minar loves my sense of humor. Well, thank you, Helena. I appreciate that. Yeah, I remember when I started doing this channel 4 years ago. Remember the early days? And my hair was long because it was COVID and I couldn't get a haircut longer than this even. And I kept hearing the, hey, where do you get your rug at? I'm like, rug? What are you talking about? This is me, baby. This is all me. When you leave work tired and you have to look after your family, politics is fourth. Gotcha. Yeah, the early days were fun. We had a lot of fun, even with, the likes of, what's that clown's name? Christian, what the hell is his name? Anyway, Sun City Jail Raid. Oh, yeah, I saw that, Chantel, but I didn't report on that. Yeah, no, I thought the story about Johannesburg is much more interesting. Let's listen to Cilliers Brink as he tells us about what's going on here. So this is Cilliers Brink on the EFF. So this was on his Twitter account today. Let's, another scam. Let me get rid of that. Let's just keep coming. All right, this is Cilliers Brink today.
Today I saw an incoherent, rambling statement by the ANC, and unlike last week, they didn't pretend that their motion of no confidence was about service delivery. Their focus this time is on the fact that there are senior officials in the city that face disciplinary action. Now, as a mayor, I don't interfere in disciplinary matters, but I do back the city manager and his team if they implement proper consequence management, because you can't have the rules being broken without any consequences. In essence, it's a summary of what this motion of no confidence is all about. It wants to take Tshwane back to the days of looting, of internal mismanagement, of no consequences, whereas this multi-party coalition government is taking the city forward and building a capital city that can work for all of its people.
Yep, he's right. He's right. I did interview Cilliers Brink once upon a time, but his PA is very unresponsive, unfortunately. Yep, unresponsive. It's a shame. Wow, 11 people disappeared when I showed that video. That's a shame. Lots of trolls to whack. Christian Paradago was one of them. Yep. And then, what's her name? It'd like to show up Ronaldo's channel. Anyway, folks, I haven't talked to Ronaldo in a few days. I'm sure he's doing fine, in case I know people are curious. Let me see if I can write to him and say, hey. Oh, here we go. So, all right, cool beans. This is up already. Let me get this one. I keep getting these ads for Kamala Harris because they have all this money to spend now. All right, let's get over here and do this. So, oh, that's not right. What the heck happened there? Oh, hang on a second. That didn't go very well at all. There we go. Now I got it. Wow, everything went sideways there. It took me back to something I cut and pasted earlier. Okay, here we go. So Kamala Harris, we don't want to hear that. Trump and Biden, the cover-ups. Okay. Ooh, the cover-ups. Okay, that's their title. I didn't come up with that title. I came up with a different title. Just saw a video of Joe Biden in two places at the same time, arriving in Paris and White House with Joe. Really? Okay, well, maybe one's just dated. All right, so let me skip this. Okay. It's been up 17 minutes. Okay, they have a long entry here. There we go. Right, let me just show you a few minutes of this one here. This just got published. I'll share the link with you.
Have been dramatic developments in American politics since the attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump. We speak to retired Colonel Chris Wyatt, the former director of African...
So, and once again, making general statements which are untrue. So, for instance, you may say that, but it's simply untrue. He says a DA member utters racist insults. It's individualized, but when an EFF member does, it's applied to the entire organization. No, the history of the EFF is what's applied to it. And I applied that comment to a specific individual, EFF regional chairperson Obakeng Ramabodu. If you watch the video, and instead of making blanket statements which are factually incorrect, unless you quantify it. If you're going to say the media does that, or you're going to name a specific individual, but by stating it in my chat, you are falsely implying that I do that. That's not the case. That's not the case. Now, that's not to say that I've never said the EFF isn't a race hustling organization. It is. Its entire ethos is race hustling. But when individuals commit racist comments, I call them out by name, whether it's Julius Malema, Floyd Shavambu, or anyone in the EFF. In this case, I called out Obakeng. So there you go. Yep. So, yeah. So that's on Biz News. Just came up.
Studies at the U.S. Army War College. Welcome, Colonel.
Well, Chris, thanks for having me back. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Well, I have to say we have to go back a little bit further than the attempted assassination. The dramatic events started with the out-of-characteristic early debate, so-called debate, that really induced narcolepsy in me that occurred at the beginning of July.
Well, quite. What do you want to say about that debate before we move on to the attempted assassination?
Sure. The thing about debate is it was highly unusual, not unprecedented, but highly unusual. And the fact that normally a debate is... So there you go. So that's on Biz News for those who want to watch it. I did 2 interviews today. Where's the water? What water? What are you talking about? What water? So yeah, that's up on Biz News. If anyone wants to watch that, here's the link. You can check it out later. Promoting their channel. It doesn't do anything for me, but the channel covers a lot of topics. So anyway, there you go. But you either be clearer in your statement or don't make such statements because it's clearly intended to defame me. RB says, yes, we're still here. Okay. Charmaine says everyone in the EFF is a racist. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure there are some good people in the EFF. I just haven't found any. Francois van der Westhuizen, the majority in prison are black. Fact. Well, in America, it's not the majority, but over 40% of America's prison population is black because the vast majority of violent crimes are committed by black Americans, even though they represent only 12% of the population. And there's lots of reasons for that. But the claim is always that they're treated unfairly by the justice system. And no doubt that does happen, but it happens to all kinds of people, not just black folks. I reported yesterday on a gentleman, was it Christopher Dunn, I think his name was, who spent 30 years in prison because he was railroaded in prison. There was no physical evidence, no forensics, no DNA to support his conviction 30 years ago. But a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old boy said, oh, he was in the doorway over there when that guy was shot. And on that basis, he was convicted. Now, he's a black man. Is that why he was convicted? Possibly. I don't know. But the fact that no one, the judge and no one, the defense, and no one appealed this and said, wait a second, there's no evidence here. How do you convict a man without evidence? That is a bit shocking. The tribes are all racist, says Chris. Exactly where is the water in communities that do not have water? I have no idea what you're talking about, PK. What communities don't have water? How do we still live in a world where we have communities with water? Because people move to places they shouldn't be living and live in marginal places like idiots living in riverbeds outside Durban, and they get washed away to the ocean when it floods. Do not build your home in a floodplain. Do not build your home on a beach in Florida in the path of hurricanes, driving up my insurance rates because your arrogance of building your McMansions on the beach and then the insurance companies pay out. That isn't fair. Make them pay thousands of dollars a month for their insurance premiums for being stupid enough to build a home on the beach in the path of a hurricane. And it's not like the hurricane comes around once every 50 years. Then you'd be like, oh, well, it wasn't their fault. No, they come every season like clockwork. And they continue to build in the path of hurricanes. New Orleans is below sea level as it sinks, and they continue to build in New Orleans. Stop putting weight on the land. Stop extracting water from the water table. Let nature return to nature. The arrogance, the hubris of human beings is too much. Too much. Lots of communities in and around Joburg. Well, that's the reason I don't have water isn't because there's no water. The reason I don't have water is because the pipes are under repair. Because the people ran water are incompetent at running it. They lived there for years. Mr. Beast came here and what's Bidwell's? Let's be real. I have no idea what Bidwell's built. Mr. Beast came to South Africa and dug wells. Is that what you're saying? Mr. Beast. Well, Mr. Beast is a guy in his early 20s. He couldn't have come there years ago. He was in diapers. I don't understand what you're saying, PK. You're going to have to be clearer in what you're saying here. It doesn't make any sense to me. Same as the floods in Cape Town. It's a winter storm and rain region. Exactly. That's the reason why the Dutch and then the Huguenots and then the Germans and then the Portuguese and then all the people, including the Strandlopers before that, didn't live in the Cape Flats. It floods. Okay. So you said they lived there for years. Mr. Beast came and built wells. Let's be real. Well, PK, the way you've written the sentence, it implies that I'm being disingenuous because Mr. Beast came there years ago and built wells for them, so there is water. But that's not what you're saying now. You're saying that what's the next thing you said? The last 2 years. That's not years ago. PK, maybe there's confusion here about communications, and maybe English isn't your first language, so that's our confusion. Are you saying, PK, that people lived in a place for years with no water, and then Mr. Beast came and dug wells 2 years ago? Let's be real. But I understand what the let's be real comment is. Yeah, stop living in the banks of Jukskai River. Yep. Stop shitting in the Vaal River. Stop pissing in the Vaal River. You wonder why it's got all these, water lettuce there? It's because people's behavior, their conduct. 44 knot wind and 3 millimeters of rain this weekend. Ouch, that's bad, Garrett. Desalinization is also not that great since it necessarily pumps salt back in the ocean. Yeah, that's true, but Devat, on the scheme of things, it's the ocean big, amount of water taken out small, additional salt not significant, and much of it will... Yeah, so that's not a major issue. They build on floodplains here and then are shocked when insurance companies won't insure them. Exactly, Fleshin. Exactly. Yeah, people build on floodplains and wonder why they can't get insurance. Okay, now Charmaine clarifies things. So Mr. Beast went to North African countries and dug 100 wells all over small villages. Well, look, see, this is a problem too. This is a problem. So I've already told this story many, many times, but I'll tell it again today. In the Sahel, in the 1960s, after the Peace Corps was created, and U.S. Agency for National Development were out and about. My beard's looking off again today. What's going on here? There we go. What happened was the do-gooders in the U.S. government decided, the poor nomads, the poor Tuaregs, the poor migrant sheep herders and goat farmers in the Sahel, they have to move from place to place and their kids can't go to school. They don't get proper medical care. It's so unfair. Full stop. Let's blow the whistle on this pitch out here. Let's go to the TMO. All right? We're going to go to the TMO. TMO, let's replay what happened here. All right, we're going to watch millennia of human history in the Sahel, which once a long time ago was a well-watered area, just like the Sahara was an oasis, was a lush, temperate zone. But that all changed. Now it's a desert, and the Sahel is a semi-arid desert. So what did these people do for thousands of years? For thousands of years, they moved sheep and goats around from place to place. They would go to watering points where their sheep and goats would denude the grass and they would move on because there's no forage. As the water source dried up for seasonal, they went to the next one. And as a consequence, they had only as many sheep and goats as were needed to survive, or maybe a few to trade for essentials with other groups of people. And they kept their population in control. So what do we do? Niger, with a population of 4.5 million in 1960, now has 28 million people at least in the same place, with the same amount of rainfall, with the same land. But why does this happen? Because the do-gooders in USAID and Peace Corps went about and said, let's dig them wells. That way they can be sedentary. You don't want pastoralists to be sedentary if they found a balance with nature, which is what they had done. So what happens? They dig wells. Now, they don't have to move on. They just stay, and then the sheep and goats eat the grass down to the soil. It gets fried by the sun, no tree cover, and then the grass dies, and they have to go out further and further concentric circles. Next thing you know, they create a process of desertification, and they're sitting around on their ample asses instead of out exercising, moving their goats and sheep from place to place every day, just sitting around getting fat, and there's nothing else to do except knock boots. And we have a population explosion with the increased number of goats and sheep, and then they reduce the water table and destroy the environment and cause the desertification and the advancement of the Sahara into the Sahel and further south. This is what happened as a consequence of digging wells for pastoralists in the Sahel by the USAID and the Peace Corps. So Mr. Beast dug wells, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. There have been people in South Africa who do not have access to points of water, clean ocean. Our government has not done anything about it. Well, you know what, PK? It's not the government's job. It's not the government's job to get you clean water. Why do people think it's the government's job? That's not their job. That's the job of individual people and or private enterprise. Government isn't about making water available. That's not their responsibility. Now, it's their responsibility to prosecute people who tarnish your water supplies, or people who steal water supplies, or people who misappropriate because they're supposed to ensure a level playing field. But the government isn't supposed to deliver water or electricity. They're supposed to provide security and a right of redress and a deterrence to criminals and a consequence-based system for criminals to prevent criminals from taking advantage of citizens. That's not their job to provide water. PK, no. It's just completely wrong. Completely wrong. It's not their job to move your rubbish. It's not their job to provide you electricity. It's not their job to give you a payment so you survive. That's horse manure. Where does that payment come from? Oh, just hang on. Oh, look. There's my SASA grant. It just fell from the sky. Oh, isn't that nice? Thank you, God. Thank you, Allah. Jehovah. Thank you for that gift from the sky. No one suffered to give me that money. It didn't come out of anybody else's pocket. It's so wondrous. The money given to people in the form of social grants comes out of someone else's pocket, a contributing member of society whose labor is defrauded by supporting people who are dependent on others. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people who are unfortunate. There aren't people who, because of circumstances beyond their control, find themselves on the back foot at the moment. But generational poverty as a consequence of sloth, of ignorance, that's not acceptable. No, PK, you're not slaves to the government for nothing. We, the polity, the body politic, people, not governments, they didn't exist. There were no governments when cavemen were running around and knocking other guys on the head and taking their wives with them. Governments, things like the institution of marriage, that's not a state institution. That's a religious institution formulated by people of faith who created marriages to procreate and stabilize society. The role of government, we create government to ensure a level playing field. So, for instance, it is a responsibility of government to create a court system or an adjudication, whether it's in Kosi, at a khutla, talking to people, whatever your process is. It's the incumbent on a government to be a place for people to go for seeking right of redress. So, if PK, you and I go in business and you fail to pay my bill, what is my recourse? To burn your house down? To murder you? To rob you? No, that's chaos. That's anarchy. So because you failed to pay me what you owe me for the services I've delivered to you, and I need that to pay my salaries, to pay my bills, then I can go to court, a court established by a state established by a polity for their collective interest. I go to court, I present my case, the court finds in my favor, and you're forced to pay by the state forcing you to do so. That's the role of the state. The role of the state is not to educate people. The role of the state is not to provide water. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. But the world has become that, as people are all too comfortable with someone else doing things on their behalf. My rubbish is collected by a private company, and the price of my rubbish collection has gone from $55 a month to $94 a month in just a few years. That sucks, but that's the free market. My water is provided by Co-op, which was a private for-profit company and was purchased by a municipality and run as a co-op, not run by the municipality. So we are sort of co-owners in it. And they charge me excessive rates for poor quality water. But that's the only option I have because I can't dig a well on my property. But it's privately provided. My rubbish is privately provided. My internet is from a private provider, not from the government. My cellular phone service is from a private company, T-Mobile, not from the government. Nothing comes from the government except misery, chaos, and dependency on others. Dumping large amounts of powdered milk or grain on anything else on a similar effect, and the dumping above it kills local production even after the aid ends, famine gets worse. No idea what Devette's talking about there. PK, get a JoJo tank and solar. I've stopped waiting for government to fix anything. We've filled potholes in front of our yard. Yes, we pay tax and rates in it. Yeah, exactly, Charmaine. I pay taxes, and my road looks like something in South Africa. The access road that comes to my development is a disaster because the local government has failed to build an overpass or underpass for 40 years on what was a tranquil, quiet, rural highway, which is now a major thoroughfare because people don't want to pay the tolls on the highway. The turnpike tolls are excessive. So they abandon the turnpike and drive on our road and take shortcuts and drive through our small towns and villages, damaging our villages, causing chaos, causing pollution, causing noise pollution, air pollution, and damage our roads. So my road, because there's no way to get from one side of the highway to the other unless you go through several robots and have to wait 10 or 15 minutes to get into town, and then double back. People come around to get into town, into the small village, by going right around my place. There's a movie theater near here and a retirement facility, and the road is torn up. It is so poorly maintained that it is falling apart as I speak. And I have damaged shocks in my front of my car because of the ruts and potholes in the road. It's a disgrace. And I pay rates and taxes for that. That's their responsibility. That is common infrastructure. That is a role of government. Governments build highways and bridges. Private corporations can do that, but governments provide that for the benefit of all. It's a common good, like defense, like court systems that are functioning and honest. That's the purpose of government, folks, not handouts. What else? Our electricity bill is cut in half. Our water bill is half. By next year, this year, I would like to be completely off the grid. Well, I have, now this is government intrusion in the marketplace. The only reason I did it, I have solar panels, but by having solar panels, I no longer have to rely on the private provider that provides me electricity, and it meets much of my energy needs. Today, it's been cloudy today, and it's also early afternoon, but I have 14.8 kilowatt hours that have been added to the grid today at 6. Currently, it's at peak 6 kilowatt hours. It's rated for 8, but it never does that. It stops at 6. So it's a peak time right now. I've got 891 kilowatt hours this month. Last month, I got 1.2 megawatts of electricity in 1 month. So this is my chart for the year. So there you can see the green lines. You can see what's going on there from January through June. July is not quite as high as June. Every month went up. And that is electricity that I'm generating. And my electricity bill for the past 3 months has been $0.00. Now, that's a private provider. I'm off the grid, not paying the private provider. But people have government. Get off the government. Stop collecting. Stop expecting government. Why can't government supply basic services? Are you asking me from a philosophical standpoint? If you want a society in which you trust elected officials, many of whom are corrupt, few of whom are qualified, and a bureaucracy that is more focused on benefits and unionization for itself than delivering service to the public, well, that's your prerogative. I don't want that. I don't want unionized government workers. I don't want large-scale government workers. I want a small, efficient, effective government that provides the basic in the form of a level playing field, functioning courts for a right of redress and for punishing criminals and miscreants, and common defense. That's all I want. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing else. The rest can come from the private sector where it's more efficient and it's based on the profit motive. When it's based on the profit motive, there is the strongest incentive to provide the best service at the lowest price possible. When there's no profit motive and there's a monopoly, then they pick the rates and make you pay whatever you want. So for years, South Africans paid below market prices for electricity and starved Eskom of the money it needed to upgrade its facilities, to maintain its facilities. On top of that, the board was stuffed full of thieves who inflated prices on contracts to take pockets of money in their own pockets, and then also cheated the South Africans. So that made things even worse. But if it had been a private corporation, those people could have been prosecuted. But government employees who are connected are protected. Connected, protected. Connected, protected. ANC Patronage Network, connected, protected. Democratic Patronage Network, connected, protected. Until you betray the overlords, and they come after you, Bob Menendez. Yep. Cape Town is flooded every year, and every year we have thousands of people migrating here, but the wetlands have mostly all been filled. We'll always have the most amount of homeless because of, yep, that's true, Kevin. You're always going to have that problem. Too many people coming there. You should start putting the word out that Cape Town is a disaster, that the services are terrible. You should tell people what the EFF tells people about Cape Town and DA governance. It's a terrible place. Cape Town is horrible. The sewage, the poor water quality, the crime, the lack of response. Tell them that. Maybe that'll dissuade people from coming. Tell them there's no jobs. Generational poverty is a problem caused by the ANC that decided to kill white people with pipe bombs. Well, Chris, that's a bit of an overstatement, but I understand your sentiment. I could have sworn it was the state's job to cover up for multinational. Says Slippery Pickle. That's funny. We work every day, pay tax so they can solve the basic needs of masses. Surely water falls under. No. That's not why you work every day. You don't work every day to pay taxes. That's a completely wrong-headed view of the world. We don't exist for the state. We're not wards of the state. We are functional, cogent Homo sapiens, capable of thought and great deeds and terrible mischief too. We don't exist for the state. When I moved from here to Cape Town, I'm no longer in the United States. I don't exist for the South African state. I don't exist for the American state. They exist for our benefit. We don't work for them. We don't work to pay taxes. They steal money from us in the form of taxes and enrich their friends and themselves. The state exists to meet our needs. And our needs are not water. Our needs are basic common defense, functioning courts, and the rule of law. That's our needs. ANC government meaning, time we change government to be a service provider only. No need to still run countries like it's the 1800s. PK says, don't be wrong. I do not believe in the government. I believe in community. No government will save you. That's true, PK, and you've said that many times. I've heard you say that. But it's not the responsibility of government. I mean, well, let me ask you this question. PK, because you raised this topic. If government is responsible for water, then why aren't South Africans voting government out? If it's failing to deliver water to people. So here's the thing. And this is what's lost on leftists, communists, socialists, Democrats, the ANC, EFF, SPD, Labor, the list goes on and on. This is what's lost on these people. Life is a competition. You may not like that. You may think it's unfair, but it doesn't matter what you like or what you think. Life is a competition, ladies and gentlemen. It's a competition. If you don't think it's a competition, explain to me how cancer defeats you when your cells turn on you and they compete. Explain to me how malaria kills people as the parasite tries to find a host. Explain to me how viruses like HIV activate in their host and replicate and reproduce. If life isn't a competition, then why are leopards predators? Why are Democrats predators? Sorry, I said that out loud. Because life is a competition. It's just the sad truth of it. Whether you like it or not, someone's out there. Was I watching something the other day. Oh no, I was watching the My Spy movie the other night. Dave Bautista is the character, and he saves this poor little old pigeon who's wounded. He goes, "Oh, little birdie." He's trying to press this girl. He picks her. He goes, "Oh, let me put him." I puts him on a rubbish bin next to him, and they're all proud. He goes, "Oh, look at that! I saved him." Then here comes a hawk. He grabs him, and nothing but feathers fly everywhere as the hawk snatches the pigeon to eat. Life is a competition at the microscopic level to the macroscopic level. It's as simple as that. And it's the same between nation states. It's the same between communities. It's the same between people. That doesn't mean competition has to be evil or disastrous, just a statement of fact. But Democrats think you can level the playing field by simply giving things away. That's what leftists believe. They believe it's their responsibility. They are the ones who are supposed to lead us. No, they're not. Show me one world leader who's impressed you in the past 5 years. Maybe Donald Trump. I don't know. But who? Orban in Hungary? Okay, I'll buy that. Who else? Certainly not Putin, not Zelensky, not Ramaphosa, not Macron, not Rishi Sunak, not Boris Johnson, not Angela Merkel, not Olaf Scholz. certainly not Joe Biden or Barack Hussein Obama or Kamala Harris or Jussie Smollett. None of these people impress me in anything. They think they're leaders. None of those people know how to lead. Not a single one of those people I mentioned knows how to lead. Last year, a bunch of people were told to go SWAT on a huge open piece of land. They got told by everyone who knows the area that flood. Yep, exactly, Charmaine. Yep. Devet Martens says, you were talking about the unintentional consequences of wells and how the biggest example of such unintentional consequences in Africa is the dumping of things like powdered milk. Yeah, where is this powdered milk being dumped at, Devet? I'm not familiar with this story. It was mentioned earlier. Where is this powdered milk being dumped? And why is it being dumped? Because people are angry that powdered milk is being delivered? Strange that under the cock and apartheid government everything worked. What's the moral story? Well, no, it's not strange, Chris. It's not strange. Let's put this in context. Let's be fair and honest. I've talked about the National Party repeatedly, and I've said the National Party was a socialist party. Now, people can dispute that. They can say, no, they weren't. They were right wing. Call them whatever you want. But the National Party created a system of state-owned enterprises out of necessity. I'm not saying they wanted to be that way. That's the way. They also created a patronage-based system that favored Afrikaners, white Afrikaners. Now, the difference between the National Party and the ANC is the National Party staffed its bureaucracies overwhelmingly with qualified people. Just because it favored one group of others, it still expected them to be qualified. You didn't get a job just because you were close to someone in government as an Afrikaner. You didn't get a job, it happened occasionally. You didn't get a job just because you were an Afrikaner and speak Afrikaans. Well, ik ben Afrikaner. Ik is Afrikaner. Sorry, I got the German mixed in there. Ik is Afrikaner. That didn't get you a job. You had to be a competent Afrikaner. The difference with the ANC government is that it's nothing to do with competence. They promote people based on loyalty and patronage. Quid pro quo. That's what they do. That's the difference. The National Party, things worked because they insisted in their patronage system that the people that were handed off jobs were capable. That's the difference, but it's no different otherwise. So yes, things did work, but a lot of things also didn't work. Most black South Africans had no piped water. Most black South Africans had no flush toilets. They weren't coming into the 20th century. Why? Because they were marginalized, put on marginal land, moved from places where they live. People whose homes had been in District 6 for 2 centuries were relocated, their property stolen from them. They had no chance after they relocated. It's not like they were given a big settlement. Let's just be honest about this, Chris. Also, my problem is that I'm working to pay them. I don't believe in them. I don't believe in a slave system that does not work. I cannot choose where I go. Well, PK, that's the problem. Let's go through this again. The money I make on this channel from Super Chats, which is a whole $2.76 today, which will buy one of these with a couple pennies left over. It won't pay for anything else. But the $2.76, which Courtney provided earlier, that $2.76, let's just go with $3. It's easier to go to 3, so I can take the number. From the $3, right off the top, 9 cents disappears. So from 300, I'm down to 293. Why? 3% automatically goes to the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I'm in a 28% tax bracket, so another 28% disappears. That's 31%. So now instead of 3 cents, 9 cents, we're talking about 93 cents. Right? No. 28, 31, 93 cents. So from $3, I'm already down to just $2.09. Okay? But we're not finished. $2.09, right? Did I get that right? 31. It's 91. Then I have to pay an additional 18% for Medicare, Social Security, self-employment tax. So I pay 12.8% or something like that, 13.2% of my income from my portion and my employer's portion, which is me. So I have to pay both. And then I have to pay Medicare and Medicaid on top of that. It comes out to 18%. So the 31 becomes 48%. So another 18%. So you take 48% of $3. That's 48, 48, 48. 120, 144. So I have left over $1.56 of that. But it's really not that bad. We go back and subtract it from the very beginning. YouTube takes 30%. So we don't even have $3 to start with. Already, we're down to 70 cents, and then all that comes off of that. You think I like paying half my income to the government? Now, that's the income tax. Now, the $1.56 I've got from the $3, which I actually get in my pocket, which isn't that much because remember, YouTube takes 1/3 of it. But let's say we have $1.56. Well, let's take the 1/3 off that. So YouTube takes 1/3 of what I make. Anyway, let's go with $1.50. Okay, I've got $1.50 after all this. From the $1.50, I go buy petrol. On a gallon of petrol, I'm paying almost 80 cents a gallon. For $3 gasoline, I'm paying 80 cents. That's not 5%. I go to the store. I pay 6% sales tax. I pay for my mobile phone. I'm paying 40% taxes and fees on my phone. I get my cable bill. Almost 50% of that is taxes and fees. I then have to pay to live in this place, property tax to keep the roads and keep the sewage running and all that stuff and keep the things functioning. The police department funded. The fire department isn't funded, but the police is. I do all that. That's thousands of dollars more. I wind up paying over 70% of my income, almost 80% of my income in taxes just to breathe every year. You think I like that? And I get represented by the likes of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Josh Shapiro? No. And I pay 80% and the state doesn't give me my telephone, doesn't give me my trash removal, doesn't give me my water, doesn't give me my electricity. I get none of that from the state and they get 80% of my income. Devet says powdered milk dumping is well known all over Africa. The dairy farmers slaughter their herds. The powdered milk dumping ends. No local production left. I've lived in 8 countries in Africa, and I've never seen anyone slaughter their herds for powdered milk. That's news to me. So you say it's well known, Devet? All right. I don't know where it's well known. I've lived in Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Nigeria, Mauritania, Uganda, Ethiopia. Never seen this occur once. Lived in rural areas, dealt with farmers, dealt with agriculture. Never seen that. Not saying it doesn't exist, but I've never heard of it. Never heard of it. Yes, YouTube does overcharge. It should be a 10% fee, and then it should be $25 for the advertising. Also, I would not mind the tax if the government actually used it to build the country. Well, I agree, PK. I have no problem. Well, I'm not thrilled, but I have no problem paying these taxes provided my government isn't deficit spending and burying my country and weakening my dollar. I mean, my dollar has been weakened. It's worth a fraction what it was worth when I was a kid. So I look at my income level like, woo, that's not bad. But when I compare it to my actual purchasing power, it's terrible. It's terrible. Aid dumping comes and goes. When it goes, the local producers are out of business. It creates a cycle that NGOs seem incapable of understanding. I'm not familiar with that story, Devet, but thank you for sharing it. I'll have to do a little research. Chris says bullshit news. What's bullshit news? Sure, there's a lot of taxes for a country that was found on the back of objection. Yes, it is, Fleshin. That's right. Yeah, but the difference is that's taxation with representation. They didn't found the country based on taxation. They founded the country, and this is something lost on Brits and something lost on leftists in America. We didn't fight a war because of taxation. We fought a war because we got no representation. We had no say in our affairs. The British Crown and its parliament decided everything for the 13 colonies, and they didn't like that. That's what it was about. We are paying taxes to support the crown, therefore we should have a voice. And they were correct. No taxation without representation, which is what's on the license plate of District of Columbia. But District of Columbia is not a state. It's a federal district. And it is not a state and should not have the rights. If you want to live there, that's your choice. If I had to rely on the government for anything, I would be homeless. That is after contributing tax 45 years. Yep, Helen. Yep. Fleshing just 1% income tax for the war effort. Oh, Chris is saying the powdered milk is bullshit news. I don't know anything about it. I've lived all over the continent. Devet, I'm not questioning you. You may be 100% correct, but I've never heard this story. Doesn't mean it's not true. There's a lot of things I never heard of, but I've never heard that story. Yep, since 1913, the United States has lost 95% of the purchasing power of the dollar. Yep. Fleshing said, I knew this lecture was coming. Well, you opened up the door. But you're correct. It was essentially about taxation, but it was because of taxation without representation. So I've seen this in America. It comes up a lot now. Oh, Americans, man, are all upset with, but didn't they fight a war because of taxation? Yeah, but it wasn't quite that simple. Kevin says, my family had to move from Windberg because it became a colored area. We moved to Lansdowne. We had to move again because it became a colored area every time, getting a third of the price. Oh, you were forcibly relocated because they designated a colored area. Is that your point, Kevin? If that's the point, you are 100% confirming the story I've been telling people for years on this program, is that the apartheid spatial planning affected everyone. Disproportionately black South Africans, but it affected everyone. White South African farmers in the Northwest, their land was confiscated from them by the government to allow for the creation of Bophuthatswana in a bizarre patchwork of unconnected pieces of land that were designated Bophuthatswana, taking the farms. Many of those farmers were compensated with land in KZN, but they weren't from KZN. They had to relocate there. That wasn't their home. Their home was in the Northwest, the West-Transvaal, where Koos-Delare came from. So, Kevin, yes, and I've told that story many times, but people don't believe it. They don't want to listen to it because they deny the truth. It's like slavery. The majority of people throughout history who've been enslaved were Europeans. Europeans. By other Europeans, by the Mongols, by the Timurids, by Arabs, by everybody. The majority of people in history who've been enslaved were actually white Europeans. By the Romans, by the Greeks. Yep. Devet says there's research written about it. Many deny it because they fear it will affect donations to famine relief. Okay, Devet, I'm just not familiar with it. I'll have to look into it. Thank you for alerting me to that story. Really should be people believing morals, wanting a better future for their kids. Well, I agree on that. I agree on that 100%. Didn't South Africa government give interest-free loans for the new taxis for 10 years ago? I don't know that story, Keith, if that was the case. I remember something vaguely. Angelique Nui says, interesting, we just watched The Patriot 2 weeks ago. The British were brutal. Well, yes, they were, but so were, the more brutal part was the militias, the Tory militias and the Patriot militias who were brutal. The enactment there of people being burned to death in a church, that's not too wild. That sort of thing did happen in the American Revolution in the South in particular, but not exclusively. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Canada is full of bum-hurt former Americans who wanted to stay loyal to the crown, and they fled. They went there. How did the USSR become a superpower from being a backwards nation to sending the first man to space? Oh, very easy. An oppressive system in which vast resources were at their disposal, and they, through weight of tyranny, forced things to happen. But don't take Sputnik and don't take Yuri Gagarin and don't take Soviets landers on Venus as a sign of success of the Soviet Union. That came on the backs of the deaths, the tyranny, the oppression, the labor camps, the starvation, the murder, the genocide of tens of millions of residents of the Soviet Union. That's what that was, folks. The Holodomor, the kulaks, the wealthy peasants, the execution of 60,000 officers in the rank of lieutenant colonel above in the Soviet armed forces in 1938. The murder of 1 million people, the snatching of women and children off the streets and sent to labor camps as sex slaves and as labor in the Gulag and in the Arctic. The theft of all the land, the destruction of thousands of churches, the oppression of tens and hundreds of millions of people. That's how that was accomplished. You can build anything, slave labor. It's not efficient. Had the Soviet Union been a multi-party republic instead of a communist state based on tyranny, it could be the most powerful country in the world today, Russia. But it wasn't like that. Don't equate a few successful things. I mean, look, we can look at a lot of countries. We can look at Rwanda. Under Paul Kagame, it's a functioning society where there's no genocide, where they've held courts, they've held genocidaries accountable without massive revenge. They have ease of business is quite simple there. A great place to invest your money with a reliable labor force and laws and courts that are upheld. But it's a fascist totalitarian state where you dare not speak out against Paul Kagame at risk of losing your freedom. Imagine if it was a state that wasn't like that, where people were free to express themselves and try ideas, and you'd be allowed to fail and you could try again. That's how you get a dynamic country that America once was, with entrepreneurs who harness electricity, who build hydroelectric dams, who put people on the moon, who put ships into orbit that leave the solar system, the heliosphere. That's where you get countries like the United States to develop an entire new medium of Hollywood and television, which creates vast entertainment for billions of people across the planet. A country that creates the internet, that creates computers, that creates television, radio, the list goes on and on. Automobiles, because you allow people to be themselves. I want to be a Simba Jimmy. ANC is driving race. I've always wondered if we knew everything about the cosmonauts, especially if they were failures. There are a lot of failures, and we've learned a lot more about the extensive failures of the Soviet space program after the end of the Soviet Union. The horrific stuff that they did. I mean, they sent people up with almost no safety measures. So great, they put Yuri Gagarin in space. He's lucky to get back alive. So, Soviet system. Now look, we've had fatalities too, but we've taken safety measures, which has prevented many more people from dying. Quite frankly, the Challenger never should have launched. That was a huge mistake. Huge mistake. But that's afterwards. That's in retrospect. It's easy for me to be a Monday morning quarterback. Get me an interview with a qualified metallurgist. Me as a white person. Says, okay. I don't say any of those things didn't happen, but would that not cause things to get worse rather than becoming one of the two strongest states at the time? Well, okay, let's put this in perspective, okay? Let's put this in perspective. The Soviet Union suffered grievously in the Second World War. 30 million people died, many of them killed by the Soviets themselves. They destroyed their neighbors, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, grievously harmed Finland, destroyed German communities in East Prussia and Silesia and Pomerania, took slave laborers across Eastern Europe. They lost so much. But also remember and keep in mind that the Soviet Union didn't have to provide much of what it needed to fight its war. Lend-Lease provided much of the material that kept the Soviet Union afloat until they could produce things at the relocated factories put into the Urals. They uplifted their industrial production and moved it en masse to the Urals. So while the western part of the Soviet Union was devastated by the Nazis and by the Soviets fighting back, much of their industrial capacity remained intact, just relocated. And while they lost a lot of people, they had a large population to begin with. The rest of Europe was utterly obliterated. France, not so much, but Germany was destroyed. The most powerful industrial country in Europe and the second most powerful industrial country in the world was utterly destroyed. There was no industrial capacity. Millions of Germans were starving and begging for food and dying from tuberculosis at the end of the war. Those not being raped by Poles and Soviets and GIs and Brits. So they had massive resources, a huge industrial base, and then what they didn't have for the industrial base, they stole. The Soviet Union came into what became East Germany, what was Poland, what was Czechoslovakia, what was Hungary, what was Romania, and they stripped industrial factories, entire factories, and relocated them to the places that were destroyed in the Soviet Union and rebuilt them there. And they stole the labor. All the labor they didn't have, they simply grabbed people off the streets in Romania, off the streets of Yugoslavia, well, not Yugoslavia so much, but of Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Eastern Europe, and put them as slave laborers in these factories until they were back up on their feet. That's not right. That's not moral. That's not just. That's not an achievement. That's horrific. That's what they did. I'm experiencing my experience. People who like singing will find others that sing, and bikers will find. Yeah, there you go. Keith says, not quite slavery, just a rational control system to keep tribes apart, to separate development. Angelique says, just watched a podcast interview with Annie Jacobson. She recently wrote a book about how close we are to absolute nuclear annihilation. Well, you could say that at any point in history since nuclear weapons have been around. Random question. Is the U.S. government doing more for war veterans these days, or are they still mostly overlooked? The concept or the notion that war veterans are overlooked is not an entirely genuine statement. It's disingenuous. Number one, let me point out something that's very true here. Many people that you see on the street, that the media breathlessly reports are homeless in the streets of Los Angeles, are not war veterans, number one. Number two, many of them are not even veterans. They're false claimers. It's stolen valor. They're claiming veteran status and they're not. Some are veterans, but the fact that you spent 2 years in the Army during Vietnam, or you spent 2 years in the Army in the 1980s or 1990s or 2000s, or 3 years or 4 years, makes you a veteran. But it's disingenuous to give the impression that someone has spent their life in uniform or is in combat and is suffering. And that's what they do, they conflate things. So the Veterans Administration is responsible for many aspects of veterans care, particularly health care. But that health care is rationed out based on your status as a veteran. In order to receive free health care from the Veterans Administration, you have to have an injury or condition that's a consequence of your service. If you suffer a loss of a limb in combat, then the care for that limb is provided by the Veterans Administration. But unless you're 50% or more categorized as disabled, you don't get free care. You get free care for that, but all your medical care beyond that, if you want it from them, you pay for it. And you pay insurance to have it. So that's something to point out. Now, if you're 50% disabled based on the rating that the Veterans Administration comes up with for your medical care, you can have free medical care. I am entitled to free medical care. Not because I spent 36 years in uniform, not because I was wounded in combat. Thankfully, I was never wounded in combat. Very fortunate there. But because of my physical condition and things that happened to me in my service abroad and domestically, I'm qualified as a disabled veteran. Therefore, I can get 100% of my medical care for free. It doesn't include dental care, though. The problem with that is that I'm paying for insurance for the Army for my care, and until a couple years from now, I'll probably continue to do that. Then I might go in the veteran system. But, you know, veterans, when you say, do they get care? Are they taken care of? Let me reread your question there. Are veterans overlooked? I don't think veterans are overlooked. I think that veterans are a useful political pawn. And when it's useful for Joe Biden to claim that he helped us with the PACT Act and lie about who the beneficiaries were or mislead about the beneficiaries, that's when veterans matter. Other than that, we don't care. When we're political pawns, like, for instance, what happened on January 6th, the media immediately went to, these are all people trying to overthrow the government. They're all veterans. And they're like talking about 75-year-olds who were in Vietnam. That's a draft army. That's not the all-volunteer force. That's not representative. How many serving active military members were caught up in the January 6th events and have been charged and arrested? Do you know of any? I've seen a few reservists. That's concerning, but active duty, I haven't seen any. Maybe there are, but certainly not the 1,000 people have been in charge. Sure, you can get news outlets to speak to you on your own. You don't need people to help you. You have a big story already. All you have to do is try. Oh, we're talking Chris. USSR was more powerful than USA after World War II. Stalin won World War II, but no. The USSR was never more powerful than USA. Never more powerful. Never more powerful. That's insane. The U.S. produced 3/4 of global GDP in 1945. 3/4. Because the rest of the world was devastated. Japan, China, Soviet Union, all of Europe, destroyed. Africa and Latin America, no economies to speak of to begin with. The USA was the world's powerhouse. That could not sustain because we were a small country compared to the rest of the world, and over time that was going to change, and it did. We didn't get smaller, we grew, but the rest of the world recovered. The Soviet Union was never more powerful than the United States, never economically more powerful, never more powerful militarily. The only thing they were more powerful at is eventually they had larger military, and they had satellite states they controlled. We didn't have satellites. We didn't control NATO countries. They controlled Czechoslovakia, Poland, all the Baltic states, which they incorporated into their illegitimate country. Romania, they didn't control Yugoslavia, and they eventually didn't control Romania. But Bulgaria, Hungary, list goes on and on. East Germany, which isn't East Germany, it's Middle Germany. The Soviet Union was never more powerful than the United States. That's nonsense. Never. The United States was grievously wounded by our foolish decision to take over for the French in Vietnam, led by incompetent leaders like Lyndon Baines Johnson and John Fitzgerald Kennedy, but we were never weaker than the Soviet Union. That's insane. Radine says, if things happen under Stalin, stop with a successor, so it might say more about him than the system. No, Radine. That's not true. That's not true. The horrors that were inflicted on Russians under Lenin before Stalin were just as bad as what Stalin did. He just had less time to pull it off. After Stalin, the stuff continued. The Soviets invaded Germany in 1953. They invaded Hungary in 1956. They invaded Czechoslovakia in 1968. And they arrested and executed the political leaders of those countries. They threatened to invade Poland in 1980 and barely didn't do it. They continued to oppress people with Soviet trials throughout the entire time. People were subject to indiscriminate arrest and disappearance. The Gulag system exists today. It was created during the Stalin years. It's still there. It never went away. It was there in the 60s, it was there in the 70s, it was there in the 80s. It never went away. This never stopped. This wasn't because of Stalin. Stalin was evil, but so were all of them. Andropov, Gorbachev, all of them. Glasnost and Perestroika, what a crock. There are U.S. government stats that show that vets are disproportionately subject to homelessness, but yes, that's true. We are. Veterans are disproportionately prone to homelessness and suicide. Statement of fact. Folks, do you know what veterans go through? Some of you do. Some of you are veterans. You know what people go through. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. No human should ever have to be subjected to that. I'm talking about combat specifically. No one should be subjected to that. But that's what politicians do. They send us off to die for their glory and their fame and their wealth and their self-aggrandizement. War messes you up psychologically. I'm one of them, but now that I'm half crazy, the government couldn't care less. Speak again. I don't think you're half crazy. I think you're half sane. Andy says, Chris, the damn encyclopedia. I love it. Lend-Lease. Yeah, we talked about Lend-Lease earlier, Devet. Yeah, which wasn't Lend-Lease. It was gift. We didn't get anything back, and we didn't get any money back from Lend-Lease. We did get some from the Brits. They paid some of it back eventually. All right, folks, that's 2 hours. I got a slight headache. I got a break here. Thanks for being with me today. Feel free to please go watch my video about what happened in the Shwanee City Council today. Please check it out. My dad was 11 in World War II. He told me stories of how he got into trouble with the German soldiers, stealing their smokes and stuff. Your dad is from Holland. All right, Charmaine, thanks for sharing that. Shouldn't steal soldiers' cigarettes. That wouldn't be an issue for me. I don't smoke. Y'all take care. Thanks for being here. Be sure to hit that like button. Thanks, everybody. God bless. Have a good day. It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. I will have rugby on Rugby Ascendant tomorrow. It's only Curry Cup, so we got a couple Curry Cup matches tomorrow and a couple on Saturday. So feel free to join me on Rugby Ascendant tomorrow. Hydrate. No, it's not from hydration. It's. I've been busy working all day and I've not been focusing. I haven't eaten. That's part of the problem. All right. Good night, everybody. Okay, but those were not nearly the same scale as understood. No, they weren't, Radine. No, they weren't. They weren't the same scale, but the same sort of oppression continued. Yeah. But anyway. All right, folks. Cheers. See, people forget that I spent a fair portion of my life at university and in NATO countries fighting against the Soviets in the Cold War, and as a historian, political scientist. And I have a background in that. But, you know, everybody just goes, oh, he's the Africa guy. I'm a lot more complex than that. Cool beans, everybody. God bless. Take care. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for your presence and being with us here. Kamala. Oh, my goodness. Kamala. To be unburdened by what has been.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know?
What can be unburdened by what has been. What
You can't make this stuff up, folks. You really can't. Cheers.